Hello, everybody, and welcome to From the Mezzanine. From the Mezzanine is the Broadway podcast for the Broadway fans, where we talk about all things Broadway news, Broadway grosses, and let's be honest, all of the tea and gossip that happens week to week in the Broadway stratosphere. How is everybody doing? I am not gonna lie, I am beat because I rushed. Y'all aren't even gonna be surprised. Is anybody surprised? I rushed The Outsiders this morning. And if you have been keeping up with what is going on over at the rush line at The Outsiders, you are very, very aware of the chaos that ensues. And let me just say, I paid once upon a time, this is my story for my children. I'm going to tell them once upon a time, I paid $30 for a box seat because today we paid about 4 times that amount. We paid $129 for a box seat for a single ticket in a box. And the reason that we are going back is because my dear, dear sister is in town, and I could not be more excited to present my favorite musical to her. I am so ready. I am so excited. I definitely I don't think that it can be overhyped, but I've definitely told her about 1 billion times. It's the best show. You're going to love it. Da, da, da. I would love for her to fall in love with Joshua Boone, just saying. But yeah, so we're seeing that tonight. And we got to that rush line this morning at 6:30 in the morning. I live in Brooklyn. I was up before 6 a.m. this morning to get into that rush line. Y'all may think, Lindsey, you have connections. You had Dan Barry on the podcast. That does not get me tickets to The Outsiders, unfortunately. And I just woke up from a very long and necessary nap, but I am so excited to be seeing that show tonight. It will, in fact, be my 6th time. But that feels right. It feels right. I'm so excited. So we are in the front left box, which honestly for me is the best place that I've sat with a quote, air quotes, rush ticket, because it's still a partial view, $129 ticket. Can that even be considered rush? Whatever, I guess so. When Bryn and I saw the show last time, her and her mom bought those box seats for $79. But back in the day, back in the good old days, in the golden days, I paid $30, 30 under 30 for that box seat. So whatever, it's fine. I've seen the show 6 times. I have paid pennies on the dollar, so it seems now, because the seats are crazy expensive. But that's what a Tony win does for you, baby. So I'm so excited to see it tonight. And I just hope that the whole cast is on, because right now it's looking like the whole cast is on, and I want my sister to see the OBC. I think Brody might be out, but I've never seen a Brody understudy, so I won't be terribly disappointed if we see a Brody understudy, but either way, I would love for her to get the full Outsiders experience. She has not listened to the music, which means that I have not played the music since she has been here, and it has just been ringing in my ears. It has been in my head, and I've had to bite my tongue because she wants to go in completely blind to see the show. But we will talk all about that because Kaylee, my dear sister, is joining me for the Meet Me at the Stage Door for the Broadway Besties over at the Patreon. We released maybe 5 vlogs, bonus episodes, Meet Me at the Stage Doors in the last month. I did a behind the scenes Tony's. I did a Come With Me to Broadway. This weekend, I am also vlogging the whole entire weekend, and we have already seen Titanique and Illinoise, and tonight I'll bring all the Outsiders in the vlog. So I'm super excited about that. But yes, I do Broadway vlogs over there. We're going to start doing From the Mezzanine story times, where I tell you stories that you've never heard before or elaborate on stories that I've briefly mentioned on the podcast. I'm excited to get that started. And then we also, of course, do Meet Me at the Stage Door, which is the post-podcast chat. And Kaylee will be joining me on that today to talk about the shows that we've seen. And you can just get to know my sister. And of course, we'll do our typical segments. Who is our Broadway boyfriend of the week and what song we are adding to our Broadway playlists this week. So that is the Patreon. It is $5.99 a month. And if you're asking me, I think it's absolutely worth it. And let me plug this real quick because I always forget to plug it. But Broadway Con is coming up, and it is in Midtown Manhattan. If you're planning on going, I know Outsiders is performing. If you want to get a ticket, use my promo code, all caps, from the Mez. It'll be down in the show links below, so you can copy it from there. But it gives you 15% off of your ticket. So use that so you save a couple bucks for Broadway Con, and then you can spend that money on all the amazing, amazing merch that will be there. Okay, let's get into our Broadway recap so far. So we saw Titanic. I have been wanting to see Titanic for so long. They've had a lot of really interesting people come through the cast, but let me just give the biggest and warmest shout out to one Nathan Lee Graham, honey. He was in theater camp, and they are the funniest actor that I have seen. They had me cackling. I was like holding my face at one point because they're just going crazy on stage and they're singing like Gypsy. They're like, mama doesn't mind, mama doesn't, bum, 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 bum. It was so funny, and I could not contain my laughter. It was amazing. My face was, I like needed stitches after that. I was laughing so hard. They were hilarious. They were without a doubt the highlight of the show for me, and they play Rose's mom, and that was just gorgeous casting, and I had no idea that they were on. I loved them in theater camp, but this was like a whole new beast. I'm obsessed with Nathan Lee Graham. See this show with them in it. I don't know how long they're staying. I don't think they've been in the show that long because I haven't seen like a lot of promo with them in it, but I was obsessed. The Celine Dion impersonator, she was incredible. Dee Roscioli. I'm sure I did not pronounce that right. But it was just such a fun time. We did rush for this show, and it was very easy to do. Let me tell you how we did it. So it's on Today Tix, and as long as you have the app on your phone at, I think it was 9 a.m., they're doing a countdown, and at 9 on the dot, you hit how many tickets you want, and then it'll put you into the queue to purchase the tickets. And it was the first time I ever tried it. I think it's pretty easy to get them. And they were $45 a piece, and we were in the very back row, but it's like a blue box. Oh crap. Okay, y'all, just roll with the punches here. We're working on just a couple hours of sleep. It was in a black box theater, and it was really, really small. So being in the very last row of the black box was like better than any Broadway house seat that you could have. It was totally great, totally awesome. There is some like crowd interaction, and so if you want to be in with like the drama that's happening and like interact with the cast, you need to sit within the first couple of rows. But that is so not my forte. I would rather be in the back and observing it all. And so I was perfect right where we were. And it was just so fun. If you're not familiar with this show, it is quite literally a parody of the Titanic movie, but it is told through the eyes of Celine Dion, who claims that she was there on the Titanic. But you have like Jack and Rose. Like, it's not giving like Encore's Titanic show where it was, I guess, a more true story. Like, spoiler alert or newsflash, Titanic the movie does have some real characters, but like Molly Brown. But Jack and Rose cannot confirm or deny if they were real characters, real people on the Titanic. So it is a parody of the movie, and they handle it really well, because then at the end they kind of like bring you back down to earth, and they're like, we recognize this is a real tragedy that occurred and people lost their lives. So we all sing near, far, wherever you are, all together. In memory of those that lost their lives. So there is a moment of like, let's be real for a second and acknowledge the fact that this did actually happen. But in terms of like farce and hilariosity, it was extreme. It was like an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race come to real life. A Tina Turner RuPaul-esque impersonator was the iceberg, and pardon my French, but every time they said iceberg, they were like, the iceberg, bitch. It was so funny. And then they had to lip sync for their lifeboats. And so they all put on drag and did a performance. It was so stellar. And it was so, so funny. I was laughing so hard. It was so much fun. I loved all the Celine Dion songs. I loved all of the references. There were a lot of like modern day comedic references, like memes that are going around like on TikTok right now that have absolutely nothing to do with the Titanic. So it was awesome. It was so much fun. You have to see this show. If you are a RuPaul Drag Race fan in any way, shape, or form, this is your wildest dreams come to life. So go and see Titanic. It was so epic. We will go into deeper detail with my sister on the Meet Me at the Stage door. And then we saw Illinoise. I have been wanting to see Illinoise for weeks now. Weeks. Ever since Bryn went and she said that she loved it. I was like, oh, okay, I need to take this seriously because it's so different. It's something that I definitely, like, if I were visiting New York, I wouldn't have been like, oh, this is on my list, but it should be on your list. It was really, really interesting. It was really refreshing to see something different on Broadway, like so different, right? It is a dance musical. There's absolutely no dialogue. They have 3 singers who are singing the soundtrack to Suffs and Stevens' Illinoise album. And the way that they do it and the journey that they take you on is really, like, it breaks it up. It breaks it up, and it does have like a path and a road you're going down. It's not just like, okay, now we're doing tap dance. Okay, now we're doing ballet. It's not just like you're viewing a dance show. It does tell a story throughout, which I really liked. The story that they're depicting, which they actually give you, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this. They give you a journal. So each actor has a journal, and I'm going to call them actors because Justin Peck, when I interviewed him, he mentioned that these are not just dancers. You cannot, they are definitely triple threats, but well, I don't know if they can sing because they don't sing, but they certainly act and dance. So I'll just call them actors for the sake of the podcast. But each actor is reading their journal, and each song for Act 1 is a different person. Or, like, they're all gathered around a campfire, and like they've just been hiking all day, and now they're each reading an excerpt from their journal. And they give you this journal, and this is the journal of the lead guy, Henry. And I really liked that aspect of, okay, this girl is telling her story. I loved one of the first songs that was all tap. I thought that was my favorite number, I believe, in the show. I really, really enjoyed that. It was just beautiful. And the choreography was so interesting. And plus it was tap. So it's just wowing, right? And so, yeah, I liked that, how it broke up each person telling their story, because it made them plot move along and it made the story move ahead. And I'm not a big, like, it's rare that I'm super floored by choreography or something like that. That's definitely not the biggest part of like a musical for me, is the choreography. I love it. I am so like entranced by it, but it's not one of the biggest elements of a musical for me. So personally, I didn't know how I would feel about Illinoise, because I was kind of worried that I might have been bored at some point, because there's not the actor singing, and that's like my favorite thing. My favorite part of a musical is definitely like the vocals and the songs. So I was concerned that I would possibly get a little bit bored by it, and I didn't get bored. It was the perfect length. It does not have an intermission. I think it was 90 minutes long, and it was just really, really refreshing that it was something that I never ever seen before. And I would certainly be interested in seeing more dance musicals in the future now that I've seen this one, which I think is a big accomplishment. And I really feel like a lot of people felt the same way. Kaylee was saying the girl who's sitting next to her was like crying throughout it. She was so moved. And I was very moved too. And let me say this, my indication of a good musical, and where I know that it is moving me and it is doing something to me and inside of me, is when I get choked up, when I like get a ball in my throat. And that doesn't mean that it has to be sad. Like, I would definitely get that with Moulin Rouge. Like, I would cry just because it's like, whoa, like it washes over me. I'm so impressed by everybody's talent and everything that's going on stage that I'm just like, wow. Like, I'm just in awe, right? And so I get this ball in my throat, or sometimes in the case of like Moulin Rouge or Wicked, like I literally cry. But this did that to me for sure. I mean, I just was like, oh my God, Like the story that it tells, it's heartbreaking towards the end. Really, really heartbreaking, but it's very emotive, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would like to see it again. So the way we got these tickets is we did lottery. So it's on Lucky Seat, and I won them for $40 or $45 a piece. And we were really kind of far back. We were in the rear left mezzanine, not the upper mezzanines, like, or the balcony. So there's orchestra, mezzanine, and then balcony. So we were in the middle part, but it was pretty far back. I would love to see it again closer. I wonder if the rush seats are closer, but I think that I will try to see this possibly one more time before they close in August. But as of now, they are closing in August. I think that they could stick around a little bit longer because it seemed like the audience, like it was a packed house and the audience was totally loving it. So I could see it lasting a bit longer on Broadway. But yeah, I was so pleased to finally see Illinoise. And I also just love shows where they make you think and they leave you like pondering, or like sometimes Kayla would have a different interpretation of something than I did. And I was like, well, that's what you took away. This is what I took away. So I really like that aspect. I think it's just different. There's not, and I feel like I don't see a lot of shows probably where it invokes a lot of like searching for the meaning and the thought and like the symbolism and things like that. I feel like I gravitate towards maybe the more like mainstream shows perhaps. I don't know, but that was new and very different for me. And the fact that I really enjoyed it, I was very, very pleased by. And I mean that to say like perhaps something like Stereophonic. It felt to me like it was trying to be super highfalutin and super like you don't understand if you don't like have the thought, and if you're not critically thinking about the narrative, then you're just not gonna get it. Like, oh, you don't get Stereophonic. And that's kind of how I felt, and I was worried that's how Illinois was gonna be. It totally wasn't. It was awesome. I loved it. It was very interesting, very odd at times, and very unexpected with some of these numbers. Like zombies come out, a clown comes out at some points, but it was awesome. It was very awesome. I really enjoyed it. And with that, folks, let's get on into our Broadway grosses. Okay, this is for the week ending on June 30th. Remember last week after the Tonys, we were not that surprised by how things shook out. It just wasn't very surprising. But this week we have a new number one. Y'all, Merrily We Roll Along is number one this week, beating out The Lion King by only $100,000 and barely. Like literally, that's a hair. But they're about to close. They close when I'm recording this tomorrow. So wow. I'm so happy to see Merrily is number one. Yay, go Merrily. That is amazing. Lion King is right there at number 2. Wicked is 3. Hamilton is 4. And then Cabaret is 5. Hell's Kitchen is looking so pretty at 6. They love that 6th placement. I do want to just mention real quick, Cabaret does not have over 100% capacity. They have 98% capacity. That is not bad. I just think it's interesting that they're so high, but they do not have 100% capacity. 7 is Aladdin. The Outsiders is 8. I have full body chills. The Outsiders has broken into the top 10 of the grosses. Let's go, Outsiders. Oh my God, stop. Outsiders is number 8. They have 102.47% capacity. Holy cow, Outsiders. Way to go. It looks like the Tony wins have officially hit the grosses because Outsiders has broken into the top 10 ranks and they are number 8. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Outsiders going to be here for like a long time. They are not here for a short time. They're here for a good time, but they're going to be here for a long time. And this is just an indication of that. And oh my God, the rush line, I did not even count how many people were in line, but the fact that we got there at 6:30 in the morning and there were 25 people in front of us, I'm sure by the time the box office opened, it was well over 100 people in that line. It was intense. So Outsiders should absolutely be this high. The unfortunate thing is, the reason that they're this high is because that ticket price has gone up. It's not because their capacity's gotten bigger. They've had like 100% capacity this entire time. It is because their ticket price has gone up. So, like, for theater accessibility and for affordability, that is not great. I don't love that. But for Outsiders' long-term success, it is very, very good. And I want it to be around for a long time, guys. Outsiders, the price will go back down. I promise. It will not stay this crazy high for forever. But it does deserve to be uber, uber successful. So I'm happy to go on. MJ the Musical is 9. The Wiz is 10. What have we not heard from? Great Gatsby. So now might be the time where we're starting to see that one just fall ever so slightly. The fact that they're at number 11, Great Gatsby is at 11, that is not a bad thing. That is okay. That is a great place to be. Do not worry about our precious, precious, glorious Great Gatsby, which, by the way, I've just been bopping to that soundtrack lately. But they are doing fine at 11, but they have been in that top 10. So yeah, we kind of can see that the Tony wins have officially changed up the grosses. Okay, let's see a little bit further down. I just want to see if there's anything surprising. So far, let's look at what musicals are ranking kind of low. So Water for Elephants had a 76% capacity last week. That is not great. Grant Gustin did announce that he would be departing from the show, I believe in August, or it might be the end of July. It's kind of soon. And so after he leaves, depending on who they bring in, I do believe that it'll dip even further, because at that stage door, it felt like everybody was there for Grant Gustin. So Water for Elephants at 76%, it's really kind of in dangerous territory. Suffs is grossing less than Water for Elephants. However, they are at 98%. So that's okay. I feel like they would like to be grossing more, but they are in a somewhat small theater. Well, yeah, it's a small theater. So yeah, The Notebook is grossing 91%. So I'm not worried about that closing ASAP or anything. Illinois is grossing 86%, so I do believe that is an indication that they will be closing in August. What an interesting week, and we have a new front runner in Merrily. However, they'll just be here probably this week and next week, and then, of course, they are leaving Broadway, which is such a shame. Broadway is going to be so sad without Merrily, but it stayed longer than it had planned, so I'm happy with it. Let's get into our Broadway news, everybody. So the Wicked news just keeps pouring in, and they just keep changing up their date. It is now coming to us 5 days earlier than it originally was, on November 22nd. It originally was going to come out Christmas Day, right? And then they were concerned about it coming out on the same day as the new Avatar, which I'm kind of excited about the new Avatar. I kind of loved the last one. So it's probably wise that they changed their date so they didn't coincide with Avatar, since that is always a box office hit. But it's kind of weird to me. It's like, are you that worried Wicked isn't going to be a hit that you have to keep moving your release date? And I don't know if this is normal. Maybe this is perfectly normal for big blockbuster movies to be like, oop, don't want to step on your toes because I want to do well. Oop, let me just sidestep that. But I feel like Avatar's not moving. And then the second time they changed it, they were going to come out on November 27th, and they were going to come out on the same day as Moana 2. And now they're going to change up to November 22nd, which now they're going to be coming out on the same day as Gladiator. And ever since Barbie and Oppenheimer, everybody wants to mix up the two big box office blockbusters that are coming out on the same day. And so now we are getting Wickediator. Gladiator? Wickediator? It doesn't work. It does not work, but that's what they're trying to call it, Wickediator, which I will not be seeing Gladiator. Sorry to you, but I will definitely be there on November 22nd. I'm super excited. I do think it's really weird that they keep changing their date, because yes, okay, I do think some of the crowd seeing Moana will also see Wicked, like the adults more so. And young adults who are seeing Moana, they'll also want to see Wicked, so they might have to choose in between. But I like to say, I like to think that those who are seeing Wicked are probably not also going to see Gladiator. Those just feel like two very different demographics. Like I just said, me in my green shirt and my pink background, do you think I'm seeing Gladiator? No, honey, I'll be at Wicked. It's okay, though. So, yeah, I guess that is probably a better date for them to release. And if it means we're getting it sooner, I'm all the happier for it. But I am inclined to think that them coming out a couple days before Thanksgiving will shake out a little bit better for them, because I'm going to be busy on Thanksgiving. I'm going to be eating turkey. I'm going to be watching the game. However, if Wicked would have been coming out on Thanksgiving, I would have been sat at the AMC, honey. I would have been there, no doubt, because I am so ready for this movie. Like, I am fully hyped. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I think it's going to be life-changing. I think the soundtrack we're going to get now, it will not, and it will not replace the original Wicked movie soundtrack. Nothing could replace you, honey. You're perfect, right? But I am ready. And if we get new songs, which we know we are getting new songs, but I don't know if they're going to be in part 1 or part 2, I'm going to be bopping along. I am so excited. I think it's going to be perfect. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm not worried anymore. Like, initially, when they said Ariana, I was worried. Y'all know I was worried. It is written in stone on this podcast. You'll know how I was feeling. But now I put full faith. I'm putting my faith in Wicked, and I think it's going to be amazing, and I'm so excited. They need to stop changing their release date unless they're going to change it to, like, next week, though. Like, let's pump the brakes. It's fine. You can come out on the same day as another movie. Like, you'll be all right. But I am just, pleased and pleasantly surprised that we will be getting it now 5 days earlier than we were. So cool. Love that for you, Wicked. Our next piece of news I am really excited about. It is a new musical that is in development. It is being produced by very credited people, Robert Greenblatt and Neil Marin. And it is a Studio 54 musical. Now, I know where all of our heads go as theater geeks. You're like, Studio 54? You mean 54 Below? Where we go and see them sing Sarah Bareilles? At least that's what I saw there. No. Honey, next door, Studio 54. You're like, Lindsey, please stop. We know what Studio 54 is. But Studio 54 was like, which I don't even know if I can really speak to it, but I do have the synopsis here. It is like the club of, I want to say the 70s, but every celebrity went through there. You hear the craziest stories of what went down there, like mob stuff, celebrity stuff, like all these relationships that formed at Studio 54. And we're going to get a musical about it. And I kind of love that idea. I think it sounds glitzy. It sounds dark. It sounds like old New York, and I love it. So this was announced this week by the producers. Here is a full synopsis. Quote, in staggeringly short order, 2 scrappy impresarios turned an abandoned West Side theater into the hottest club in the history of New York, utterly transforming music, nightlife, and celebrity culture in the process. It also transformed the lives of everyone who made it past the door, whether for one extraordinary night or every night, until it all abruptly came to an end. Studio 54 the musical will bring audiences past the velvet rope and into a world of unfathomable decadence, set to the thumping sounds of the most iconic disco hits of the 1970s, and populated by a cast of unforgettable characters, all having the time of their lives. Welcome to Studio 54. That sounds so fun. So, like, people who are passing through were like Marilyn Monroe, Liza Minnelli, all kinds of artists, all kinds of actors. So I imagine that Broadway actors will be playing all of these celebrities, and I think that's really cool and fun. And I just think I love classic New York, right? And maybe this can do for us what New York, the musical could not, right? Similar vibes. I see this being very good, especially with who is at the helm. So like I mentioned before, producers Robert Greenblatt and Neil Marin are developing the musical. The book is by Chad Hodge, and the music is going to be jukebox. It's going to be disco music of that time. What would it be? Like, shake your groove thing, shake your groove. Is that too old? I need to look up disco songs of the 70s. Let's look what Spotify pulls up for disco songs of the 70s. Okay, disco hits. Oh, Night Fever by the Bee Gees, okay. Okay, some Earth, Wind, and Fire. I like that. This is not what's going to be in the musical. This is just what were like the disco hits of the 70s. Ring My Bell. Don't stop till you get enough. Come on. Don't stop till you get enough. Okay, Brick House by the Commodores. Love the Commodores. Love them. We got some The Jacksons, okay. The Village People. yeah, we're going to be boogieing it down over at Studio 54. I love this concept. I think it's really unique. Let's be honest, I usually love a jukebox musical too. So I'm really kind of pumped for that. And the 70s era and the New York vibe and style of the 70s, I think this is going to be killer. So here's what the producers said in the statement when they announced it. So Greenblatt said, quote, Neil Marin and I started talking about the amazing story of Studio 54 as a possible series years ago. He goes on to say, quote, but we finally came to our senses and realized we had the perfect musical right under our noses, quote. Neil Marin added, quote, and with a book by Chad Hodge and the incredible Sergio Trujillo, who came of age during the disco dance craze in Toronto and New York, we have the perfect team to bring it to life. So we don't have any word about when, where, or who will be in this show, but I'm on board. So Marin and Greenblatt have done a ton of stuff. Marin did Some Like It Hot, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and Promises, Promises. And Greenblatt is a 4-time Tony Award winner. I mean, come on. He's so talented. And he adapted Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, Something Rotten, Dear Evan Hansen, Mean Girls. So he's got his pulse on like Broadway currently right now. I'm a little nervous about the fact that Marin worked on Something Like It Hot because we all know I did not love that show. The style was off to me. The vibes, didn't like it. But I think this show has what it takes to tickle my fancy. And I'm on board. I am on board, honey. I'm really excited to see what kind of celebrities they portray. And I think the dance in this show, the choreography, will be stellar. I just love it. Can't you just picture it so easily what a Studio 54 musical would look like? And of course, there is like the Studio 54 theater. And so it could play in there. However, we do know that What a Wonderful World is coming to the 54 theater. So depending on when this arrives, it could inhibit it from going into 54. But I think that's obviously the perfect place for it. But that also is a small theater. So it could be better for it to go somewhere else. Okay, the last news story that I just have to touch on with you guys is the protest that occurred at Suffs this week. It totally shocked me. And I know I've heard some discourse online about Suffs. And if you haven't seen Suffs, please don't let this deter you from seeing it because I think it's a really good show. But let's talk about what these people were protesting. So the protest was actually organized by a group with the website title, quote, cancelsuffs.com. So they're not some like other feminist group. Maybe they're a part of one, but their purpose and their reason to be there was to quite literally cancel Suffs. So in the image that I saw that was circulating the internet this past week was there were at least 4 protesters and they were in a box and they released this banner. I don't know at what point in the show that they released it, but the banner read, quote, Suffs is whitewashed feminism. I have heard people say that online. And I feel like there is a little reason, right, to say this. And I'm like low-key kind of scared because I'm like, please don't protest from the mezzanine. Anyways, but no, I'm scared, but it's fine. I just have to tell you like what I thought about it. I totally think that it's their right if they want to protest something that they don't believe is expressing history correct. And I think it would be different if they were glorifying Alice Paul, who is the lead actor or the lead character played by Shayna Taub, and saying like this woman did everything for feminism, but they aren't doing that. And they do have a lot of representation. I mean, Anastasia McClinsky plays Mary Church Terrell and Nikki M. James plays Ida B. Wells, and their stories are a big part of the show. An essential part of the show, right? And so I don't personally feel like Suffs displays whitewashed feminism because I do think that it unveils a curtain on the fact that these women and Alice Paul in particular, her mission was to get women's votes. That's what she wanted. And it is expressed in the show that she wasn't ready to fight for Black women's votes. She wasn't. They display that in the show. But what this movement, cancelsuffs.com, is vying for is they're saying that is not displayed in the show. So I went to their website because I was curious about what they were standing for and what their reasoning was in canceling Suffs. And their homepage read, quote, "Suffs is a betrayal of the next generation of feminists. We reject this rehashed white feminism. This action is brought to you by an autonomous group of radical anti-racist queer feminists," quote. Okay. I mean, I totally respect their right to disagree with a show. I feel like Hamilton had a lot of discourse because we were like, why are we glorifying these white founding fathers who really kind of messed up our country, right? It makes perfect sense that these historical figures, they are not perfect in today's society, any of them, right? But for me personally, I feel like the story is so untold. I did not even know who Alice Paul was. I did not know a lot about the suffragist movement whatsoever. I mean, I knew the 19th Amendment and I knew what you read in the history books, but this really like gave a character behind the movement and it informed me so much. And I think that that was a feat in and of itself. And the fact that Suffs has like an all women and non-binary cast, like, I'm so appreciative of that. And I think that that is such an achievement. And I raise it up because of that. But I do feel, and if you've seen Suffs, maybe you'll recognize this too. I do feel like at the end of Suffs, Alice Paul, the lead feminist, her character she realizes, oh, I am now behind the wave of the next feminists. Like now what I am doing isn't enough for them. They expect more out of the next movement and now I am outdated, right? And she kind of gets taken over by the next girl in line to lead the movement. And in a way, this is like art imitating life because I feel like these people are so possibly developed that they are now pushing and vying for the next movement of let's not, even though like, I mean, this isn't what I believe, but it is somewhat reminiscent of that. Like, this is not the story that should be told. We should tell the Black stories. And it's no doubt that this story is focused on the white women in the feminist movement. Like, that is obvious. And if they're not wanting that story to be told, then this isn't the musical for them, right? Like then there should be another musical, like Shayna Taub, please, right? And you're the next musical about the Black feminist movement. But it is really interesting to me what they are putting on their site. And I did not read their entire site, but they did note some key points that they're saying were not included in Suffs, like the Black women who were standing behind Alice Paul. There's this key moment that shakes the audience in Suffs where Alice Paul tells, I can't remember if it was Ida B. Wells or Mary Church Terrell, but she tells them, you're going to march in the back. And they're like, I think Ida says like, I've only seen it one time, forgive me. But she's like, I'm not marching with you if you're putting me in the back. I'm not doing that. And Mary Church Terrell's like, let's take what we can get, right? So that also shows, like whenever we were talking to Shayna Taub at the Tonys, she's told us, she said, my focus was the discourse within the feminist movement. So this is a key part of the plot. She is displaying the fact that Alice Paul appeared to be racist. She was saying, we've got to get the women's vote, period. And that means, of course, the white women's vote. Your vote will come next. And they also say that like whenever the women get the 19th Amendment and they get their vote, the Black women are saying, why should we care? Like, they're like, good for you. This doesn't change anything in my life. And like Ida B. Wells is pretty upset by that. But Mary Church, she's saying, if they get their vote, that means we're on the right path, right? And we're going to get our vote. But this cancel Suffs on their home or on their webpage, when they're trying to explain their reasoning to want to cancel Suffs, they're saying that this part of the story is not displayed in Suffs. This is what they're not saying. But they are saying it. It is a very, very essential and key plot point in the musical is the discourse within the white women and the Black women within the movement. But I don't want to say I was surprised because protests are very common on Broadway, and there has been discourse online of people saying this. Like, I've heard the whitewashed feminism thing about Suffs for a while. And so, no, I'm certainly not surprised that this occurred. But I don't think it's going to cancel Suffs. I think Suffs shines a light on women's history like I haven't seen something else do, like true history. Like, I've seen women-led musicals and I've loved it. I saw POTUS, women in the White House standing behind the president and what they did to help him, but that wasn't a true story, right? It could be based on a true story. I don't know, but this is the first all-female and non-binary cast that I have seen telling like a true historical story. And for that, I do believe that Suffs should be celebrated. And because I know, like, I've met Shayna on multiple occasions at this point, and I know her intentions are of the utmost purity, and these people are not perfect. And Alice Paul, the character Shayna plays, is not put on this like godly pedestal. Like, we should worship her. She's perfect. Like, we literally see her say to Ida B. Wells, "Wait your turn." And then Ida B. Wells has like this groundbreaking, earth shattering, glass ceiling breaking, that's not the right term, but song where she says, "I will not wait my turn." And like, it's such a huge part of the plot of the show. So I kind of feel like the people who were at the protest maybe hadn't actually seen the show, because if they had, they would have seen that this story is told. So that's all I'm going to say. I understand that we shouldn't be glorifying the white women in our history who were saying some really damning things, and their priorities were not in line with what we believe today. However, that is history, and this is how it happened. Like, they are being factual and saying this is how it happened in the musical. So these are not perfect characters. You're not supposed to look up to them, but it is just historical. So that's like, I mean, there's no pretty bow to tie on it, but that is something that happened on Broadway this week. That is really freaking crazy, right? With that wraps up this week's episode of From the Mezzanine. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Please leave me a rate and review wherever you're listening right now. Stop what you're doing, whatever you're doing. If you're working, I promise, as long as you're not driving, it's not that important. You should just leave From the Mezzanine a review, a 5-star review. I'm trying to get to 50 reviews on Spotify. That is my goal. So let's do it. I had the sweetest review this week where somebody said that they finally found their Broadway bestie. And that truly, in every way, shape, and form, warmed my heart. Like, truly. I was like, oh my God, this is so kind. So please leave me a review. I read all of them. They are so kind. I love you guys. I love my listeners. Y'all are literally the best. Y'all are all of my Broadway besties. If you want to become a Broadway bestie over on the Patreon, you can follow the links in the show notes below, or go to patreon.com and find From the Mezzanine to become a Broadway bestie and get all kinds of bonus content from yours truly. Share this episode with your Broadway bestie, because I'm sure they're going to enjoy it just as much as you do. And over on the Patreon, we will be doing the Meet Me at the Stage Door, the post-show chat, and my sister will be joining us, and you can meet her, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty about Illinoise and Titanic. So thanks for listening, and I will see you guys next Tuesday. Bye! I gotta go to Outsiders!